Um, Folks, thanks for joining us this morning. We are going to talk through the Arts Council's Touring of Work scheme, the round that has just opened and will close on the 8th of May. We are recording the session so that folks who couldn't join us today can watch back. My colleagues and I will go through a short presentation which should outline an awful lot of what you might need to know. And then we'll do a Q&A afterwards where you can type in your questions to the Q&A box. And between the three of us, we'll get them all answered. And we will stick around until we answer most, if not all, of your questions. And hopefully we'll be finished by about 12 or maybe shortly after that. Next slide, please. If you need it or would find it helpful, we're on Zoom and you can select to turn on live captioning. So if you see at the bottom of your screen, there should be that CC box that gives you the option to do so, and that will create captions for you, but not for other people. So if it's something you need, you go for it. So that's the agenda for today. We're going to run through a number of things about the scheme, criteria, guidelines, contact details, and an opportunity for questions as well. I'm sure lots of you know who the Arts Council is, but just so that you get a sense of things, the Arts Council is the Irish government agency for developing the arts. We have a board of 12 members and a chair who were appointed by the Minister for Culture, and we are directly funded through that department. We have a large team that delivers everything that we do, and we also have a number of arts advisors who kind of plug in their expertise, who contribute to assessment and so on. The Arts Council does a lot of things. We promote the arts through projects, through initiatives, through communications campaigns. We research the arts so that we understand more about the sector, and we also share that research with others. We offer advice on the arts, primarily to government. And then the thing that we do the most of, the thing that we're best known for, and the thing that we're here to talk about today is funding. An enormous amount of our work and an enormous amount of our budget goes out through direct funding to artists, arts organisations, and others who are developing and advancing the arts in Ireland. We are the multidisciplinary arts team. My name's Aideen McCole. I'm the head of multidisciplinary arts. I'm joined by my colleague Muireann Walsh, who's the multidisciplinary arts officer, and also by our touring advisor, Martin Murphy. So the multidisciplinary arts team, we look after grants and supports for the practitioners who work between and beyond and around and in combining the art forms or the traditional art forms. We're quite a new team, so for the first time now, multidisciplinary artists can apply for the Agility Award to develop their practice in this combined or multidisciplinary way. We're also going to be offering bursary round 2 to multidisciplinary artists. In addition to that, this team manages grant schemes which are not discipline specific. So things like the Creative Production Support Scheme and this one, the Touring of Work scheme. We also have a number of advisors. So we have an advisor who provides advice and assessment around multidisciplinary arts. We have one who provides advice and assessment on digital arts. And then, of course, we've got Martin here today who looks after touring with us. Okay, so now we'll get stuck into the Touring of Work scheme itself. The Touring of Work scheme aims to support artists and organisations to tour brilliant art of all kinds to different venues and places around the Republic of Ireland. We're talking about 2026 round 1. So this is for tours which would occur between January and December of 2026. We don't put a cap on what you can ask for in touring like we do for other awards in the Arts Council. It's open to all of the art form and arts practice areas that are funded by the Arts Council. It's open to individual applications or individual applicants, organisational applicants, and collaborative applications. We made some changes to the most recent round of touring, which some of you might have been aware of and some of you maybe not. So I'm going to detail these again. So these are not new changes, but they are quite new changes. So the scheme is now stranded. Um, when you're applying, you'll be asked to indicate which strand you sit in based on the amount of money that you're asking of us. So you don't plan your tour any differently to be part of a strand. You don't budget any differently. Rather, you do your planning and budget exactly as you would have. And then when you've calculated how much you're asking for the Arts Council, you tick the relevant strand. In previous years, we had asked for a contingency plan as a mandatory document. That's no longer the case. In the most recent round of the scheme, we've clarified the difference between personal or participant access costs and audience access costs, and we'll talk about those a little later. We have slightly changed the MOU template that you use, including details of in-kind support where you have them, and also an opportunity for what we call any other comments, which is something we'll talk about later as well. And then we've also changed the way in which you must present your budget. So your touring budget used to sit within the application form. Now it doesn't. And instead, an opera applicant will submit an opera touring budget template. A theatre applicant will supply a theatre template. And for everyone else, we have a very flexible general touring budget template that you can use. The objective of the scheme is to make great art of lots of different kinds available to more people throughout the country. When selecting tours to fund, we consider the artistic excellence of the work itself, and we also take into account your consideration of public engagement. So who this tour is for, how you're going to reach them, and why. In many cases, the work that you're proposing to tour will have already been produced and well received by audiences and or critics. A funded tour will bring the same or a very, very similar artistic program or event to at least 3 places or spaces. And what I mean when I say that is we understand that sometimes the program you present might be somewhat responsive to the place that it's in, or certain elements might change or evolve over the course of the tour. But generally speaking, you're bringing something the same or really, really similar to each place. What you're not doing is delivering three or more completely different events in completely different places. There are other ways that you could fund that through the Arts Council. Another thing that's really key about touring is that in order for us to really trust that a brilliant tour is going to happen, it's completely viable and it's going to be well received, it's going to be well marketed and so on, is that the applicant will have brought together a network of venues and or other partners and collaborators in order to make that happen. So the places you're bringing the tour, we want to see commitment from those. And you may also be engaging other artists, producers, promoters, organizations, festivals, and so on in order to make the tour happen and in order to have it reach the audiences you would like it to reach. Like everything with the Arts Council, this is an award that is informed by our overarching strategy, making great artwork, and it also speaks to a number of other policy and priority areas, such as our spatial policy, our EDI policy, our paying the artist policy, which gives you guidance around pay and conditions for artists. What might be relevant to you is our policy around children and young people's arts or our policy around arts participation. Depending on what art form or arts practice area you are working in, there may be individual priorities that you need to be aware of, and they are listed in the guidelines. And then a thing to note, it's not something you need to address in your application yet, but if you are someone who tours regularly or would like to be touring more often, bear in mind that you will need to think a little bit more about environment and so on. The Arts Council has a climate action and environmental policy, which will be published in due course. We are beginning to roll out training in this area for organisations, and I've been talking to the team in question about touring and about the fact that we need to consider how we make tours as kind to the planet as we can. So now we're going to go into the nuts and bolts. The scheme is open to individuals and organizations for touring in 2026. Within reason, some tours can continue into early 27. So if you have good reason for a little bit of the tour to continue into early 27, that's fine. You just need to tell us the reason. It could be about your venue availability. It could be about maximizing a particular opportunity for audiences or something like that. But it is 2026 funding. So the majority of the tours we fund will happen in 2026, and the majority of your tour should happen in 2026. You should be based in the Republic of Ireland. And if you're not, you need to tell us, you need to convince us that what you're touring will benefit the arts in Ireland within your application. You should be a professional practicing artist or arts worker, which doesn't necessarily mean you make all of your money or spend all of your time working in the arts, but you should identify yourself and be recognized by your peers as a professional practicing artist or arts worker. And then you can be an organization, but note that this is not a round that strategically funded, Arts Centre funded, or partnership funded organizations can be the lead applicant on. They can indeed be partners, but they can't be the lead applicant. You can be funded by other Arts Council awards and still apply for touring. You just have to make it very clear to us that there's no double funding, that this is something separate to what, say, your arts grant covers or what your project award covers. And this is sort of what I just said, but the opposite. So organizations in receipt of those sorts of funds, Strategic Arts Centre Partnership, are not eligible to apply for this round. If you don't have a demonstrable track record as a professional artist, you're not eligible. If you're not based in the Republic of Ireland, unless you tell us you've got a good reason to tour here. If you are not guaranteeing payments to artists, you are not going to be eligible. And also, if you are a national cultural institution, you're not eligible to apply. Again, this is for tours happening in 2026. There is no upper limit on what you can apply for. And then, as mentioned before, the scheme is stranded. So you will indicate if you are asking us for up to €50,000, if you're asking us for between 50 and €150,000, or if you are asking us for over €150,000. So like I said, do all your planning and budgeting as you would normally. You've reached your final figures, you tick a strand accordingly. What kinds of costs can you include in that budget? The direct costs relating to touring after any income has been deducted, wages and fees for anyone involved in the tour, administrative costs that are related to the tour. And I would say in particular, if you have a producer, make sure they're fairly paid for the administrative work that they're going to do. Or if you are self-producing, that is still time and labor that should be paid for. So have clear consideration of what you're paying yourself if you are self-producing with regard to the administration and the coordination of the tour. Hire of equipment, space, or venue if it's needed for the tour. Your marketing, PR, and public engagement costs. As we've stated, public engagement is important for this. When it comes to touring, we love for the art to be brilliant, but we're also really, really keen on the audiences. Who's your audience? How are you reaching them? How are you making sure they know about this tour? And how are they going to have a good time? That might involve spending some money. So think carefully about those costs and include them in the budget. Touring almost always includes accommodation, daily expenses, and travel. So think very carefully about that and include it. We'll talk a little bit more in a minute, but your personal or participant disability access costs. You may also have audience access costs, and again, we'll discuss those. And then when it comes to the remounting of something that's happened already, i.e. you have made this show, it went really well, and this is when you want to bring it on the road and show it to more people, the cost of remounting that production can be included where it's not been funded from another source. In some cases, you can include a new program of work. So for instance, art forms such as music, traditional arts, visual arts, and multidisciplinary arts are open to you proposing something new. And then the costs associated with that can be included in your tour budget. For art forms such as theatre, opera, dance, circus, street performance, and spectacle, The priority here is not for a new program of work. It's for something that has already happened that you can demonstrate went down well with either critics or audience or both. In other words, you made the show, you have presented the show, people thought it was great, and that's why you're taking it on the road. That's what those art forms are prioritizing. In those art forms, in exceptional circumstances, someone with significant track record can propose something new. But you have to talk to us, the touring team, and talk to that art form team first, before you send in an application. Okay, the access costs. So at the Arts Council, we identify two key types of access costs. One is we call participant or personal disability costs, and the other is the cost of making your work accessible to others, i.e. audience disability costs. You should identify both in your budget, and then you should also include a little detail or a little breakdown of those costs. There is now a template associated with all Arts Council awards for you to identify those. It's available on the touring page as well as any other funding page. And if you're applying for one or both of those types of access costs, include in the budget and also detail in the access costs template. So a little more detail so you understand what these costs are and the differences between them. So if artists or those who are contributing to the making of the work and the touring of the work require access interventions or supports, those are what we are referring to when we say participant or personal disability access costs. So the team involved in making the art happen, if they have access needs or if you want to put supports in place, that's what you categorize this as. And this could be about ISL interpretation for someone in the team who's part of the deaf community. It could be services of an access support worker. There are a number of things that you might be considering. And that's what we refer to as personal or participant disability access costs. The other type is audience disability access costs. You've made the work and you would like audiences of all kinds to be able to access and enjoy the work. That might involve putting supports in place or creating access interventions. That could be interpretation, it could be audio description, it could be touch tours or other things like that. An expansion of your marketing materials, those sorts of things. If it's about enabling access for the audience, it's on this side of the access costs. And again, those should both be, if you're asking for either or both, you should detail those in the template that's on the website. Okay, ineligible costs. What can you not apply for? If it's happened before 2026, I'm afraid we can't fund it. Not in this scheme. Costs related to initial production costs, unless otherwise stated. I'm afraid we can't fund touring in an international context or touring in Northern Ireland. We love to see it, but unfortunately, Arts Council funding can't be used for it. Major capital purchases, I'm afraid, can't be included in this. Ongoing core costs for your organisation that are not directly related and proportionate to your touring activity. Activities or costs that otherwise don't fit the purpose of the scheme. Activities that are more suited to another award offered by us or others. Activities related to fundraising, participating in a competition that are for profit making or that are already funded from another source. Just on profit making, because it came up in a previous info clinic, some of you might go, well, I'm going to sell tickets. Isn't that part of it? And wouldn't you like us to be selling tickets? And wouldn't you like us to be selling lots of tickets? Absolutely, we would. But you factor that into your income and your budget. So in particular, you will work with your venues to determine what's realistic in terms of ticket sales, in terms of the venue's own capacity, in terms of their success rate with work like yours, in terms of their audience engagement and so on. And you calculate that and you factor it into your income and your budget so that we can see that you are selling tickets and you are anticipating you will sell to 40% capacity in your venues or 40% in this one, but 60% in this one, and factor all of that in absolutely. but it's very much part of the balancing of your income and expenditure to eventually arrive at what you're going to ask us for. Um, and that's how you do it. Is this the point where I hand over to my colleague Myrne?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you, Myrne.
Morning, everyone. I hope you're all well. So I'm just going to go through the application process where you can find information to help you apply for this award. So the first thing I'm going to say is the guidelines are the most important point of reference for you when you are completing your application. It contains all the information we're talking about in this info clinic and a lot more. There'll be links to different policies that you can find on our website as well. So, where can you find the guidelines? You can log on to the Arts Council website at www.artscouncil.ie. You may notice it looks a bit different. We've just launched a new website, so things look a bit different, but hopefully they're a bit more user-friendly and accessible for people. It's being updated all the time, but it has all of the core information that you'll need. So up on the top ribbon, you'll see the apply for funding option. If you click on that, it will bring you to the next page, which is the funding opportunities page. If you scroll down this page, you will come across a number of the awards that are currently open, which includes the Touring of Work Scheme 2026 Round 1, which I'd like to add is open at the moment. Um, Once you click on this, it will bring you to the Touring of Work Scheme 2026 Round 1 web page. You'll get a brief overview of the award. We've already gone through the opening date, which was 8th of April, and the closing date, 8th of May, and who it's open to as well. If you scroll down on this web page, you will come to the guidelines and templates. So you will need to download the guidelines, as I've said already, to read these carefully before you submit an application. Make sure that you're adhering to all the eligibility criteria and you know what to expect during the application and assessment process. We also have all of the templates you'll need to download. So you have your MOUs, your budget templates, and then your disability access cost activities template. And again, these web pages and guidelines, these are all available in Irish. There's an option, you just need to click Os Gaeilge at the top of the page. There's also an option here to log in to your online services account, which I'll come to in a minute. So once you've downloaded the guidelines, they look something like this. You can either download them as a Word document, which is screen reader friendly, or you can download them as a PDF. It is split into 4 sections, which you should read carefully. So as we've gone through already, we have a section about the Touring of Work scheme, what the objectives and priorities are. Section 2 will go step by step through how you make your application. Section 3 will tell you how your application is processed. And then we have the appendix at the end, which will go through the different priorities that each art form and arts practice area will focus on. And you'll find different bits of information in here as well, including contact for the access team and our online services team as well. So I'm just going to go through the application process now. So everything needs to go through our online services portal. And again, you can go through this on the Arts Council website. So back to the homepage, you'll click on apply for funding and you will see the option to visit the funding portal online services. If you click on that, you'll be brought to the portal itself, the login page. So you must apply through our online services portal as we won't accept anything that is sent by post, fax, email, or even delivered by hand. And you will need to use a computer or laptop to do your application, as the online services website does not work on phones or tablets. You must have an account to apply. If you don't have an account, you can sign up. You will need to do this as soon as possible. Just give yourself enough time. It can take up to 5 working days to be issued your artist reference number, your ARN, and your password, which you will need to sign in at OLS. If you already have an account, that's absolutely fine. Just log in as normal. If you have any issues with regard to your OLS account, you will need to contact the online services team at onlineservices@artscouncil.ie, and I have the phone numbers there. Unfortunately, if you come to me, I will just be passing you to the OLS team, and it might delay you if you're under a bit of pressure to get your application sorted. So I definitely recommend contacting OLS if you're having technical difficulties. So when you log in, you should see a page that looks something like this. Again, this is accessible in Irish too. So your touring application form must be filled out, and you do this by clicking on Make an Application on your home page on OLS. So you'll log in, you'll click on the Make an Application button here, and just to note that you'll need to fill out your application form using Microsoft Word or Microsoft Excel for the budget, or the OpenOffice Writer or OpenOffice Calcon, and then it's uploaded through OLS. So once you've gone through making an application, you'll come to this page. You'll see your applicant details, your name and your ARN. You'll see your address. You will need to click the box to confirm that your details are correct, and then you will click Next. So just make sure that everything aligns and it's uh, the correct information that you see. This will bring you to the next page within making an application. So this is section A. You should see a funding drop-down list. So you will pick, if you are applying to touring, you will pick the Touring of Work scheme round 1 2026. You will also need to pick the former arts practice area that you're going for example, theatre or music or multidisciplinary arts. And there will also be a strand. And again, as we've mentioned, this is based on the amount of money you are requesting from the Arts Council. Um, you'll go through then and you'll select your reference. This is just a reference for yourself, just to let you know what your application is. So you'll click next then, and you can save as draft if you're not ready to continue. Section B will appear then where you can download the guidelines if you haven't already, and you'll be able to download your application form. So, as I've said already, the guidelines contain more information on how to apply. I would read this very carefully and prepare your mandatory supporting documents before you proceed to the next page. As you go through then, you will be able to request your funding amount. You will be able to upload your application form and supporting material. Please make sure you have uploaded the correct documents, make sure they're not blank documents, and then you can submit your application. When it comes to filling in the application form, once you've downloaded it, you can begin filling it out immediately. Just make sure you're typing within the grey boxes. If you delete any of the boxes or you type outside, this form will not be uploaded correctly. And again, this must be done on Microsoft Word or OpenOffice Writer, and you can fill this in on your own computer. So it's separated into these 4 sections. You'll be asked for general information, so your name, your ARN once it's been given to you, what strand you're applying for, and your arts practice area. You will then fill out information regarding your proposal. So what the title of the tour is, what we would summarize the main events being, what venues you're going to visit, and if you have any collaborators involved in the project. You'll then fill in the amount requested. So your proposed expenditure should include all fees and wages, technical costs, promotion and publicity costs, and administrative costs. Your proposed income should include what you expect to receive from other funders, box office receipts, and program sales. And it's also important to reflect any in-kind support you receive as both income and expenditure, so you reflect the full and true value of your proposal. If your only other income is in kind, you will need to explain why. And you can do this in your application form. Finally, you will just tick off the supporting documents that you have included. There's a checkbox at the end. And I think I'm going to hand over to Martin for this part.
Okay, thanks, Marin. So, so just in terms of the mandatory documents and supporting material. So, obviously, the term like mandatory documents is a little bit forbidding. I mean, but we say they're mandatory, but the important thing about them is it's not just about sort of like having to clear a bar in order to be eligible. These are the documents which help you to maximize your score because, like, all of the applications will be assessed on a scoring basis. So, you want to give yourself as good a chance as possible. So it's important to really think about how you can make the best case using these different mandatory documents and supporting materials. So the completed application form, that's the most obvious one, and the sections within that just give consideration. The guidelines again has all the details of what we're looking for in each of the sections as far as the application form is concerned. So just think about how you can best make the case in each aspects of the four criteria that we're going to use, like that's artistic quality, public engagement, the strategic objectives of the award, and the feasibility. Then the other supporting materials that are mandatory, the Memorandum of Understanding, I'll talk about that in a minute. But those are all they're absolutely essential for everything except for theatre applications. Then the detailed budget, as Aileen was saying, we have the separate budget templates for those. So the apart from the theatre and opera ones, which have their own budget templates, you should use the budget template that's offered on the web page. If you want to supply a separate, more detailed budget, please feel free to do so. We'll accept that. We'll look at that. If there's an amount of detail that you don't think that the template goes into, then that's fine. But generally, for most of these things, the templates that are provided should be enough for that. Public engagement strategy, I'll talk about that in a minute. The most important thing about that, well, not the most important thing about that, but just do look at the fact that it's only 3 pages. That's all we want. So we don't want an entire thesis about how you're going to go about maximizing your audience. And evidence of track record, and I think this is one of the ones which is it seems the most doesn't seem the most onerous, but in many ways it's one of the most important, because like there is 25% of the award is down to feasibility, and we can only assess your feasibility if you give us evidence of what you have done before, what your track record is, what's the track record of the people that you're working with, and particularly what is the track record of the person who's going to be, or the people who are going to be managing the application or managing the different aspects of the application. So that's, if you're working with a producer, it's really important that you provide a CV for that producer. If you yourself are producing, managing the proposal, then it's really important that in your CV, it's not just about what you've done artistically, but it's also about what you've done in terms of producing and managing similar projects. And as far as your public engagement, the people you're working with for public engagement, if you have a communications manager who works with you, then it's very important that you upload their CV. If you are employing a PR agency or a PR specialist, then it's really helpful if we have some sort of evidence of what their track record is as well. Because what happens sometimes is that people make provision in the budget for doing PR, but they don't tell us who that PR person is going to be. And that's fine. It means that they'll score pretty well under feasibility. They would probably score better under feasibility if we actually knew who that PR person is. So anybody who's going to have a management role, some sort of a management role in terms of the proposal, it's very useful to have a CV for them. And then your samples of work, just look clearly at the guidelines for that, pages 14 and 15. There are different criteria for some of the art forms, so just make sure that you're aware of what those criteria are in terms of the amount of work and the number of pages of a script or something like that, if it's a play that you're, or if it's some sort of a literary piece that is involved in your work. And then in certain circumstances, there'll be other documentation that we'll be looking for. So the disability access costs, Aideen's already talked about that in terms of that we do need a short document which outlines what those costs are. And then for the other 3 special areas, it's working with children, vulnerable persons, and with animals, we will be looking for evidence. If you're successful with your application, we will be looking for evidence afterwards in order to proceed with the award. So just keep that in mind, okay? Next slide. Okay, so the MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding. So it's pretty straightforward, but it is essential for everyone except for theatre. So parties to the memorandum, like you should have a separate memorandum between yourself and each of your presenting partners, whether that's a venue or whether if you're working in a site-specific place or somewhere which isn't a formal venue, the person who is managing or has overall charge of that space. So we need to see a memorandum of understanding about that. So we need your to say who you are and who the partner organization is. Under the audience section, the start date. So when, if it's only going to happen once on one day, then that's the day. Obviously, with some things like an exhibition, it might be over a period of weeks. We just need to know what the start date is going to be in that particular venue. And then the number of performances, exhibition days, obviously, it can tell us. And that would be the number of days that there will be access to the exhibition, if it is an exhibition, rather than it just being, obviously if it's closed on Sundays, then don't include the Sunday. And the agreed target audience per performance. So it's important that that you say how many is your average audience per show or per iteration. Okay, so if you've got an exhibition for 25 days and you reckon there's going to be 2,500 people there, then the number there should be 100. So it's 100 people for 25 days. And similarly, obviously, for a live performance, it should be the same. Okay. Now, as far as the financial agreement is concerned, this is this is where it's getting down into the nitty gritty, but it is really important. The box office income. I mean, part of what the MOU does for us is it gives us evidence of how strong the partnership is between yourselves and the venue. And sometimes, quite often, in previous rounds, you'll find that the MOU doesn't include the box office income. Maybe the venue doesn't really want to put a number on it to begin with, or maybe you, as the producer, don't feel that you can actually guess what that number would be. It's really useful to know what that overall box office income is going to be, because obviously we then look at your budget and see that number is being reflected in the amount in your budget that you're saying you're going to be bringing in terms of earned income from the box office. Obviously, for quite a few proposals, you won't be expecting box office income to contribute to your own costs, but still we really want to know what the target box office is going to be, because we want to know how successful the venue themselves, or how many people the venue themselves think they're going to be able to attract, and how much income they are going to be able to get from it. The royalty payment, obviously, if there is a royalty payment for the work, it's important to have it there. And then the guarantee that what you would be expecting to get, or what you've agreed with the venue, they would pay you as a minimum. Obviously, for some proposals, there won't be a guarantee, so that's fine. But there is, to a certain extent, obviously, the more guarantees you can get for your proposal, the more feasible it becomes as far as we're concerned. So if there's no guarantee there, if you are going to be expecting to be earning income through the box office on a rental basis or something like that, then we would expect an extra level of security in terms of the amount of experience you have in terms of doing similar work and developing similar audiences, and the amount of resources you'll be putting into engagement in order to back that up. So we'll be looking at the financial agreement and assessing it in relation to the amount of resources you're allocating in terms of promoting the piece. So the venue rental, or it's so the guarantee is very important. If there is a venue rental, then it's very important that we see it there. And again, that in some cases, particularly in performing arts, that we'd be able to see that venue rental in the budget, and that we'd be able to make sense of it. In all of these things, it's just a question of clarity. That, like, if we can see in your memorandum of understanding that, like, the financial figures that you have in that that they are replicated in the budget that you give us, then that, again, that helps with an overall sense of feasibility. In terms of the box office split, sometimes some proposals will be just on the basis of a straight split between the venue and the applicant. So it's important that we know what the percentages are going to be for that. So, you know, if it's 70-30 or 80-20, and obviously that you get the right amount going for the applicant and the right amount going for the venue. So just make sure you don't get them the wrong way around. And also for in some agreements, it will be a mixture of a guarantee and a venue split. And just be careful when you're putting your budget together that the amount that you allow from the box office split happens after you've deducted the amount that the venue will be taking in rental, or the venue will be taking in their as their second call, as they call it, in terms of like after they've paid you the guarantee. So the box office split in a guarantee agreement is generally sorry, I won't go into the details of it. It's getting anyway. Just make sure that you're clear with the venue about who's getting or how much the guarantee is, how much they then are taking as a venue rental, and then how much is available for a split after that. And then the final thing is the in-kind supports, which in many ways it gives us the clearest indication of how much commitment there is coming from your venue partners. And the more we can see the commitment from the venue partners, the better. So get them, or make sure that you've agreed just what it is the venue are going to give to you on an in-kind basis. And it's important that they should, if at all possible, put a monetary value on it. Like if they just say, oh yes, we'll give you support with marketing and you'll be in the brochure, that's great, but please, it's better if they say how much in their estimation that is worth, and to put a value on it. Okay. Next slide, sorry. And then any other comments? There might be other things that you'll want to say in terms of the support that the venue is giving to you, or that there is some sort of agreement between yourselves and the venue about the development of the piece. So put it in there. The more information, the merrier. And then the date by which this agreement will be confirmed is usually that it would be sometime soon after the outcome of the touring work scheme applications is publicised. So we would expect you to be firming up your agreement pretty soon after you know that you've been given the award. And then the other thing, which is really important, is that the MOU should be signed by both parties. Sometimes it's not possible to get your venue to actually put a signature on the MOU. But digital signatures, like everybody's using digital signatures now, that shouldn't be a problem. Essentially, ones that look like they've actually been signed by the venue themselves are just that bit more credible than ones where it's a printed name. And ones which are left blank are just that little bit less credible than the other two. So do, if at all possible, try and get a digital signature or an actual physical signature from the venue. Okay. And then the public engagement strategy, it's set out in the guidelines, and in some of the different art form priorities will also make comment about what they're looking for in terms of your public engagement strategy. So do look at the specific art form priorities in the appendix in the guidelines. But this is what, as far as your 3-page public engagement strategy is concerned, this is what we'll be looking for. We'll be looking for like who your tour will reach, why you're targeting the audience, and how you're going to reach them. And then just about like what your approach to marketing, publicity, engagement is, and whether there will be additional events, like additional events which will in some way deepen the audience experience. in more specific about how the venues will be supporting you with the public engagement. So, what if the venue themselves are taking on more of a role in terms of the public engagement, and that that you yourselves are mostly just providing the piece of work, then this is where we need to know what they're going to do in order to step up to the plate as far as that's concerned. Um, it's fine if you have a general public engagement strategy. Your organization has a general public engagement strategy which says this is what we do when we are publicizing a piece of work that we are doing. That's fine. The important thing is that there should be some way that it is specific to the proposal that you have. Something which is a generic thing is not as useful as something which says this is what we've done before and this is how we're going to use it in order to publicize and encourage engagements with this particular proposal. Um, the experience, as I said before, it's really important that we know what your experience is in terms of engagement, encouraging people to see your work. So make sure that that is there in your CVs and also in the public engagement strategy if it actually outlines who the people who are going to deliver it are concerned. Then there's no harm having it in there. And also that what you're saying in your public engagement strategy, I mean, the real feasibility is when we can see the activities that you're outlining in your public engagement strategy, that they are reflected in your budget. If you're saying you're going to do a whole host of things in your public engagement strategy, and then we can't see it in the section in your budget which deals with public engagement and communications, then that is less credible. And so you're not going to score as well under feasibility or under public engagement as you might otherwise. Okay, next slide.
I think
So,
is this me, Martin?
oh, this is you. Yes,
Yes.
sorry.
Thanks very much, Martin. So I'll take over here about mandatory supporting material. So this is just in terms of getting everything right before you submit your application. So please make sure you prepare the correct supporting material that you need for this application and ensure they are of the acceptable file format. And again, these are in the touring guidelines if you need any more information with regard to touring, with regard to audio or the length of scripts and that kind of thing. Please name the files clearly and appropriately. We'd also ask that you review the application checklist at the end of the application form and just check the appendix as well, in the guidelines to make sure you've got everything that you need. You will upload the application form and all supporting materials on OLS. Just double check you've uploaded the correct files. Actually click into them and make sure that they're not blank or that you've uploaded a different file. And then you're ready to submit your application. So what comes next then, once you have submitted everything, is the Arts Council will begin assessment and decision-making processes. So the assessment process goes something like this. Following receipt of your application before the closing date, you should receive 2 emails. The first one will be to acknowledge your application and that it has been received. And the second one will provide you with an application number. So this should begin with an A and about 6 numbers after that. So A, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If you don't receive this email, you will need to contact the online services team at artscouncil.ie. So once we receive your application, we will begin eligibility checks, just making sure that you've supplied everything you need for the scheme and that you are eligible. In some cases, you might have applied for an arts area that is not the best fit for your proposal. In this instance, we will contact you and ask you if you're happy to be transferred to a more appropriate arts team. You'll have a choice to say whether your application is moved or for it to remain in the arts area that you've applied. So for example, you might have applied for theatre, but maybe you're best suited under music. We will reach out to you in those circumstances. Applications that are deemed eligible will be passed on to the internal joint assessment process to begin the shortlisting process. So we have our advisors and assessors and Arts Council staff who will use their professional arts expertise and judgment to assess the applications against each of the criteria that we've already named. So that would be artistic merit, public engagement, strategic objectives and priorities of the touring of work scheme, and feasibility. So please again read the guidelines and make sure you understand what each of these criteria mean and what they require. Just to continue on then, applicants will be shortlisted or not shortlisted. Those that are shortlisted will continue to panel, and those who do not will get a letter from us to say they have not continued on to the panel. We will then gather an external peer panel to review all shortlisted applications and material. They will come together to determine a final score and make those final decisions. So the purpose of peer panels is to allow for a diversity of expert views to inform the decision-making process. They normally consist of 3 to 5 external adjudicators with relevant art form or arts practice area experience. And each meeting is usually led by the Arts Council and by a council member acting as a non-voting chair. So decisions will be communicated in writing to applicants by August 2025. And please note that assessment reports are available upon request to all applicants. We just have a little bit of an overview of that process. And then I'll just talk a bit about the general advice and further information. Just again, please allow plenty of time to fill in your application form and don't be leaving it until the last minute. Please ensure that you are registered on OLS if you're a first-time applicant or user. You must apply through OLS, as we've said already, as we cannot accept applications submitted by post, fax, email, or delivered by hand. Make sure you relate your proposal back to the awards, priorities, and objectives, which are listed in the guidelines. And as we said, read the latest guidelines very carefully, as things may have changed from the last round, and pay attention to any must or mandatory requirements. Make sure that you are clear, that you understand eligibility criteria, the scoring process, and any weighting for the assessment criteria. And always double check that you've uploaded the correct mandatory supporting material with your application. Again, as I said, just click in and make sure your budget is your budget and your MOUs are your MOUs and they've been filled out. You can also have someone read your application before you submit it, just to double check. And then please combine any similar documents into one PDF. So you can combine all of your CVs together and you can combine all of your MOUs together. And finally, just the dates and deadlines again. The Touring of Work Scheme 2026 round 1 is open and it will close on the 8th of May 2025 at 5:30. If you submit anything after that time, you won't be accepted. The Arts Council expects to inform applicants of decisions again by August 2025. If you have any queries about the scheme, you can contact me at multidisciplinaryarts at artscouncil.ie, and my number is there 087 794 1044. And a reminder, if you have issues relating directly to your OLS account, you're better off contacting the online services team at onlineservices@artscouncil.ie, and we've got 2 numbers for them there. I'm just going to, before we open up to any questions, I'm going to go through a few that we get asked quite frequently. So first question is, can we apply for touring funding if we're not based in the Republic of Ireland? So as we've stated already, you can't apply if you're not based or resident in the Republic of Ireland, but there are exceptions to this rule. And we'd consider your application if you can convince us that your proposal would benefit the arts in the Republic of Ireland. Can you apply for a tour that takes place in Northern Ireland? No, you cannot apply for costs relating to the touring of work in Northern Ireland, but you could potentially contact the Arts Council of Northern Ireland in relation to touring up in the north. Can we apply for funding for a tour that will take place abroad? Again, you can't apply for costs for tours taking place abroad, but you might want to contact Culture Ireland in relation to this, as they do fund international touring activity. Will there be another round of touring funding announced for 2026 or 2027? Yes. So the Touring of Work scheme is actually round 2 there, and 2027 advanced planning will open on the 9th of December 2025 and close on the 22nd of January 2026. We are an organisation in receipt of Strategic Partnership Arts Centre funding. Can we apply for touring funding? I'm afraid the answer is no. You can't apply for the Touring of Work scheme 2026 round 1. But these types of organisations can apply to the Touring of Work scheme 2027 or advanced planning. So again, that will be opening on the 9th of December later this year. Can I make more than one application to the touring of work scheme? For example, to the same scheme, but a different art form or arts practice area? So the answer to that is no. You can only be the lead applicant on one application per scheme. You could be named as a collaborator on a number of applications, but you can only be the lead applicant on one. Our tour starts earlier than January 2026. Can we still apply to the scheme? So no, round one of the scheme only funds tours that will take place between January and December 2026. Is there a minimum number of partners or venues required? Yes, your tour must take place in a minimum of 3 venues. We also have a definition of what we consider to be venues in the guidelines, so make sure you take a look at that. So can we apply with a proposal for the same work that was previously unsuccessful? Yes, you can reapply for touring funding with a proposal that was previously unsuccessful, but please be advised that the touring work scheme is highly competitive. And then finally, can we remount a tour that's already taken place and was funded by the Arts Council? Yes, you can apply to cover the costs of remounting a production, exhibition, or show where these have not been funded by another source. So I think that is the end of the presentation.